broken system, chained and tangled up in lies. Voices shouting, screaming in defeat. Politicians playing games under darkened skies. Hope lost in the dust of the street. Red and blue, colors pouring from the sky. Debates turn to anger, the crowd gets loud. Punches flying in the blink of an eye. Truth buried deep beneath the shroud. Welcome to the bullpen, where we don't survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Faces on the screen, flashing perfect teeth. But behind those eyes, just rotting greed. Politicians turn to whispers beneath. They all just get what they need. Whispering conspiracies, drowning in their lies. Echoes of freedom, lost in cries. Spin the wheel of fate, let's see who rise. But this game will bleed you dry. Welcome to the bullpen, where we don't survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak don't survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive.
Good morning or good afternoon. Welcome to the Bullpen, where we discuss the week in politics. And this week, we get to talk about a boat running into a bridge. We get to talk about seashells on a beach. We get to talk about the Supreme Court.
The seashells on the beach is a good one. We also get to talk about the cover up to try to to cover for the press by now throwing Biden under the bus completely with releasing the her interview, which is so it's clearly sharp as attack Joe.
Sharp as attack. Hey, Vex just rated us. Thank you, Vex. And good morning. There's Lindsay joining us as well. She's been playing a lot of Expedition 33. I watched a bit yesterday.
Nice. Is she someone who understands how to win that game, unlike other people who sometimes play it streaming?
She's getting there.
Okay. Good.
Vex, perfect timing. Yes, it was. Thank you. So yeah, I think the seashells on the beach was one of the more interesting ones, and some of the fallout from it, because one of the Krasensteins got sucked into that one, and also got a visit from Secret Service, and is not real happy about it.
Do we want to start with that one, or do we want to go? See, my two choices for 1A and 1B are the Mexicans running into the Brooklyn Bridge, or
Well,
James Comey's seashell extravaganza.
since we named the show Wall's Work, Look at the Brooklyn Bridge, I guess we should probably start with the with a Mexican ship running into a bridge.
Yeah, I've got the. Let me get the clip. I've got the actual because this is nice. They actually had the smarts to make sure it was done in an area where we'd have massive amounts of cameras watching as it happens.
Yeah, it was a little bit insane. I'm still trying to figure out, were they trying to go into the port or get out of the port? Because how did the ship get in
I
to
don't.
begin with?
They were supposed, maybe if only Slender, our Navy expert, was here. The this is an old masted sail ship, that they were doing like a goodwill training tour around, the North Atlantic zone with.
Hmm.
And this is how they decided to spread goodwill in New York City. That's the Brooklyn Bridge. That's the boat. That mast is clearly too big, and they're just plowing right through.
I guess they should have
Plowing
put a
right through.
sign on the side of the bridge that said overpass, clearance 180 feet.
I'm gonna say I'm pretty impressed with the lights staying on the upper part of the mast.
Yeah, but all the
Whatever
guys that were up on the mast, they
fell
did
got
not stay on.
no, they got so yeah. So this is a good angle. We can leave that up. Once again, allegedly, this is an instance where, just like in Baltimore, the boat lost power, and so it was just going without direction. Now, why that would prevent them from dropping a freaking
Why would the
anchor to
rudder
try
not
to,
work?
yeah, I would imagine they could at least
Power
drop
steering.
anchor, drop anchor to try to like stop the boat from moving forward and hitting a bridge and killing people. I believe there were a few fatalities as a result from the sailors who were up on the masts.
I haven't heard of any fatalities yet. I know that there were a few people in critical as of yesterday. That could have changed this morning. But
And then they also, and this bridge, because this wasn't a giant freight container, didn't collapse. Which would, I mean, you want to talk about a problem if Mexico's Goodwill boat had collapsed one of the great iconic bridges of the United States. But this was so they did inspect it. At least two are dead now, per the latest update.
yeah, that's what Ghost just said
Yeah,
in chat too.
yeah. So it's just a debacle. Like you got to start wondering if things like this are intentional. It's weird that we go all this time and now we have multiple bridge strikes within like it's weird.
Well, according to Twitter, it's obviously Duffy's fault. So
That a
how are we
Mexican,
gonna
I
explain
do
that away?
I do love, like, yes, Duffy is responsible for a Mexican naval vessel's training and maintenance.
Flying a gigantic Mexican flag and playing a whole bunch of Mexican music as it runs into a bridge.
Apparently, the power didn't go
And
out for
why were
that.
there people standing all across the mast?
Yeah, Slender saying sharks should show minimum, maximum clearance, high tides, low tides.
Yeah, I guess if
I
they
don't
were
know.
leaving, it could have been that they got in during a low tide.
I don't know. I mean, there's ways to get. I mean, what is that? The Hudson River that that's going over.
I would think so.
So I'm pretty sure there's other entry points where it could have gotten in, and it's probably not supposed to. It's through the East River, spanning
East.
the East River between the boroughs of Manhattan and Brooklyn.
That's your neck of the woods. I don't go anywhere near New York City.
So here, I'm gonna let me see. Stop trying to get directions. All right. I'll switch to what I'm sharing because I brought up a Google map
Oh, okay.
and share Google Maps. Share. Like it even look the Brooklyn. It even has the Brooklyn Bridge like incident here. So
Right.
you can see like it could have easily gotten in through the bay accesses here.
Yeah.
Look, this is where the Statue of Liberty is. So like there's open water through the upper bay here. Then it just could have turned going towards the Brooklyn Bridge up here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Icon. So I mean, I think that's how the boat got in, and it was just never meant to go. It should not have been heading towards a bridge it couldn't clear.
Yeah, Slender said Port Authority should probably have had somebody on board supervising, and it could be our fault since we're in charge of the traffic.
I wouldn't. I don't know. There's a lot going on. I would like to find out that if they were supposed to like maybe have done like a turnaround because
Or if it truly was a power issue again.
yeah, that maybe because this is a goodwill tour boat, right? That's why it had the giant flag and was doing the music. You could see it like doing basically a little kind of parade around the coastline, then flipping around to do the other direction.
Goj, who's looked into it a little bit more, says, from what I understand, tide plus wind plus tug push, not tide, plus engine failure on Mexican ship.
So a cascade of failures.
Yes, that
Yeah.
are obviously Duffy's fault.
Well, Trump's fault, clearly.
Ultimately.
Ultimately.
Basically.
Stuck in reverse, not a power outage. Okay, that would be even more of a problem. Oh, it looks like we did get a super chat.
Yeah, I've got to scroll back and get that one. Jeremiah Hembry for $5. Are you talking about the Dark Vader AI voice saying racist comments in Fortnite? I saw the story. I haven't actually looked into it very much.
I mean, who in their
Have you?
right mind didn't see that coming as soon as
I
you
mean,
gave players the ability to use the Darth Vader voice to say whatever you wanted?
you give them any voice and they're going to come up with a way to do something like that, especially in a game that is mostly populated by 20-year-olds.
Exactly. I mean, the clips I had seen circulating a lot weren't racist things. It was more like Darth Vader just completely crapping on the sequels, which was hilarious.
And that's
And
good.
which was funny.
And Lindsay, that's kind of why I had named the show that. I mean, now that I've heard that 2 people died, I mean, yes, that is a more tragic thing, but there is something interesting about a Mexican ship getting blocked by a American iconic bridge.
Yeah. You shall not pass.
Yes,
It's like,
especially with that ridiculous flag flying. Not a regular size flag. I understand it was a celebration and everything, but
yeah, that was like a dealership size flag, is what that was.
yeah, that's going into Dallas from Fort Worth, where they've got the company that built or that makes all the flags that is flying just oversized, ridiculous flags all over the place. Huge.
At least they're
Huge.
made in America. Huge.
Huge.
Yeah. I now that I made that joke, I want someone to put an AI Gandalf on top of the Brooklyn Bridge and just yell, "You shall not pass."
Just a tiny little miniature guy slamming his
Yeah.
staff down.
Uh, Not that Mexico is the Balrog. Clearly, that's Canada, but
Hey, the Balrog will not be able to be a 51st state, so it can't be Canada either.
so this is on the heels of just we're about to enter into renegotiating the USMCA. We've got a lot of international relations issues with Mexico, so this is not going to make things better. Not at all.
Gosh, that was the true cause. The huge flag caught the wind, dragged it off course into the bridge.
That reminds me, when you say it that way, one of my favorite meme things this week was the baby memes phenomenon.
You do love the baby memes, yes.
It's hilarious. I think
I love
I
how
think-
it removes it when you actually change now.
$400
because they
million
can't remove it when it's
bribe.
nothing.
Can you believe it? First it
Baby
was
Trump.
Russia, then Ukraine, now this. The fake news just keeps getting better. Let me tell you something. If someone offered me $400 million to put America first, I'd say, make it 5, and I'll throw in NATO too. But seriously, folks, what they call a bribe, I call a deal. That's what I do. That's why the economy was booming, the borders were secure, and the world respected us. You know who really took bribes? The people who sent billions to China while your jobs vanished. The people who made sure you paid more for gas, groceries, and everything else.
He's gonna win another term. Then there was baby Stephen Miller.
Could interfere. Well, I mean, again, the whole thing is just preposterous. So, as the Department of Justice has said in writing, nothing that the administration did conflicted with the court order. But there's a bigger issue here, which is the court order is.
I don't know why
patently
baby
unlawful,
Stephen Miller keeps
and
looking
we got
like
into a
he's
place in this
making boom
country where
boom as he's
district court
talking to the
judges
reporters.
could, for example, help is the wrong word. Could interfere and direct specific targeting or non-targeting in, say, Houthi-controlled territory. Well, I mean, again, the whole thing is just preposterous. So,
Houthi controlled territory.
I don't think he's got that that much of a vocabulary at that age, but
Yeah, you
a
know who
baby
could
saying
have
preposterous.
who could have used a baby meme? It was James Comey. And if he had just posted one of those instead of taking his long walk along the beach and making like a 12-year-old girl making a seashell thing to take a picture of.
Oh no, Chad, he didn't make it. He just came across it on the beach because that's what happens with seashells on the beach. People just are always threatening presidents' lives with seashells, and he just happened to come across it. It's kind of like Tom Hanks constantly coming across gloves that are missing their pair.
Is that a thing? Tom Hanks. What was that from? Was that?
That's from the conspiracy theories about Tom Hanks.
Oh, okay. Oh man.
I'm pretty sure it was him that used to just make random posts about, well, just found this one little kid's glove just laying here.
I don't want to hear about Tom Hanks ordering cheese pizza.
Yeah. But
Because
the fact that Comey just happened to find a bunch of seashells that just said 8647, decided to take a picture of it and put it out there on the internet. It's not like he was the former director of the FBI and would know better about what 86 means.
Oh, I mean, it's not like the FBI tactical units when they actually have a sniper dispatched with them don't specifically have, like, when they call down to get permission to fire on a target, the supervisor giving permission wouldn't possibly say 86 so and so as their code language within the FBI. Oh, wait, that is actually what they use. So when this asshole is going to do his interview where he's like, I didn't know that's what it means. The context,
even if you weren't in the FBI or the military, even in restaurants, people know what 86 means. It means it's no longer on the menu.
he's being too cute by half, which is saying something.
Yeah, I'm pretty sick of Comey altogether. I think most people are, and the fact that he's claiming ignorance means that he was either the most incompetent person that's ever been in the FBI, or he's just a
Fact
freaking
true.
liar.
Fact check true.
Yeah,
See, all
I
of
think
the
both
above.
are true.
Yeah, Eric, I saw the same thing. The fact that the 8 is a different color totally bothers me about this picture.
The OCD going off a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he should have either made the 6 the same color as the 8 so that it was 86 was one set of colors and 47 was another. I mean, he can't even gather seashells right. Such a little bitch.
Well, maybe that was to throw off the scent of it being him, and it was obviously a little kid on the beach that just spelled it out.
Yeah, it's like his kid.
But I did enjoy that one of the Krasensteins also posted, now it is the time or something like that with the 8647, and then said, Secret Service won't be say anything to me. And then a couple days later, or maybe the next day, Secret Service was at Krasenstein's house. And he's like, see, this is what true authoritarianism looks like. You can't even say anything. It's like, you literally are posting something saying to assassinate a president.
This is what true authoritarianism looks like. I should totally be allowed to advocate for the specific negative disposition of a person's life online.
Yeah, if
Watching my words carefully since Brahma's monetized.
go peacefully to the to the Capitol building and protest is a call to violence, then I believe 8647 would be a call to violence.
Sure.
And we had a whole impeachment about that. So
Bear in mind also, this is also in the context of the guy who had not one, not two, but three assassination attempts of varying size and scale
that we
against
know
him
of.
that we know of in the campaign, including one where he was actively shot. Another where we had a guy attempting to purchase tow missiles to take out Trump Air Force One, whatever. It wasn't Air Force One yet. Trump's private
Trump
jet.
Force One.
Trump Force One. And somehow apparently had the connections where he was able to do that because he had been working with guys in Ukraine. Amazing how that might work.
Odd.
Odd. And yeah, it had
Weird.
like 17 cell phones and all this stuff. Isn't it amazing how we have no idea about any of these people's, like,
We still haven't heard anything about them.
that the only people who have no digital footprint, no social media standing, none of this, are the people who decide to just go after President Trump. So
Yeah, it's a little bit strange.
we in Comey, having been the former director of the FBI, is also well aware that in Trump's first term, we had a deranged left-wing shooter who went to the congressional softball practice field and tried to mow down 30 Republican members of Congress, including sending Steve Scalise to, like, on the emergency, like, going intensive care where it was
in
touch or
critical
go,
condition.
and he did almost die. And honestly, if Steve Scalise hadn't been on that team with a plainclothes Capitol Police detail assigned to him because he's in leadership, there would have been nobody firing back to keep this guy from just having wiped out that entire squad. And I'm
Mhm.
sure, through all the thoughts and prayers, the Democrats wouldn't take advantage of that at all to swing the House to their, they wouldn't immediately move to have put Pelosi back in as House Speaker. So anyway,
Yep.
I'm just this idea that this guy, who is one of the sleaziest, most knee deep in things person, which also reminds me of another thing. Bongino and Patel continue to be my most disappointing choices. Talking about how they're only going to be this week, they're going to be distributing out about 1,000 FBI agents from headquarters to the field offices, and making sure that that all the remaining 10,000 employees who work in Washington, D.C. will have the most amazing, most premier office to work in. They're going to get them a new, highest tech, bestest building ever. Like, you assholes should be firing everybody. They should have a floor. Like, they should be able to go take a section of the USAID building that we gave to Border Patrol for the FBI at this point. But no, they're draping themselves in their own power now. They're joining the team. So whatever. It's they're the worst disappointments.
Yeah, we talked about them a bit last week. Oddly enough, right after we talked about them, Bongino finally did make a statement on what they've been doing, and he's claiming that they've been busy with the deportations and helping with that and identifying people that need to be deported. But that's not what we asked them to be doing.
I don't need them to be helping with that. I don't think
That's the one place where no, I didn't vote for this. What I voted for was for you guys to clean up the FBI and the CIA.
correct. And at least Tulsi and Ratcliffe are making positive movement over there. They fired another batch of people this week.
Mm-hmm.
They're in fact to the point where John Brennan went out there and started doing his usual protest tours about how this is gutting the intelligence complex. And if you've got Brennan out there huffing and puffing, that means you have fired all the right people. By the way, John Brennan, former director of the CIA for Obama, a avowed communist in the 1970s, member of the Communist Party. In the 1970s, during the height of the Cold War, and he's the kind of guy we think, yeah, he should be director of the CIA. Not a red flag at all. Not at all.
Yeah. It's not at all like Bernie, having his honeymoon over in communist China, or Tim Walz multiple visits over there and staying there for how many years? These are the people that the other party wants to have in leadership. And Walz has been absolutely ridiculous lately, going on the, I guess, what he considers a campaign trail, even though, there's nothing left for him. He's been out there just spouting off left and right, speaking on behalf of the Democrat Party, which has been very effective for the Republicans.
I'm the guy they bring in to appeal to the white working class. That worked out really well.
Yeah. Yeah, the dudes for Harris, white dudes for Harris, worked out great for them.
Was it Trump? The most hilarious thing when Trump actually said or posted when they did the white dudes for Harris, when he was like, "It's okay. I'm pretty sure the men sleeping with their wives are going to be voting for me." So
yeah.
I was like, Trump like with the kill shot. Like,
Trump knows that the left is trending towards cuckism.
I feel like they've already been, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, they definitely are.
At least the white male portion of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, they're all imitating Diddy as best as they can.
Got to have those freak offs
with the baby oil.
What are the odds? I'm pretty sure there was reporting on Barack Obama going to some of those parties.
There's reports of a lot of people going to those parties.
Yep, and there's now the conspiracy theory angle is that it is no mistake that once that Diddy got arrested right around election time last year, so they could get all those freak off party tapes, and that's when all the celebrities who had been silent and were sitting out the election suddenly came out and was like, "Yay, Kamala! We like Kamala." I'm looking at you, Usher, specifically.
Usher. Yep. So, yeah, 8647 is now showing up at protests all over the country as well, because, it's what the left does. Just nonstop protesting everything. Even when they are in power, they're still protesting. So, we'll be seeing that a lot.
Shout out to the Matapap on Mad's new channel about a presidential assassin of Garfield last week, because I feel like he was unknowingly timely doing a whole episode. We've done a couple actually on the Matapap on presidential assassinations now on Mad's new channel, which I think today is when he's finally going to be back up and running at some point. So good for him. But if anybody wants to check that out after the bullpen, that was a particularly cuckoo banana story of a man who definitely should not have. Oh my God, we incepted him into chat,
and he appears.
Yeah, a man who should have never ever been around any political influence,
any politician whatsoever.
In fact, he reminds
But
me
he
a
did
lot
give a
of
speech to 12 people.
he reminds me a lot of James Comey in terms of his complete feelings of self-aggrandizement. I feel like that's who James Comey would have been if he was born in a different century.
I find it funny that James Comey decides to post this right as he's got a new book coming out again. Didn't
Is he writing fiction? Is he writing fiction
yeah,
now?
he's writing fictional books now. I mean, well, technically everything he's done is fictional, but yes, he's got a new book coming out, and that is why he needed to get his name back in the news, which is why he decided he should post this, and he has taken it down since because he just didn't know.
I didn't know. I didn't know. So,
Yeah, Coach. Coincidence? Think not.
all right, let's take that down because Comey's such a tool.
But I did love the Krasenstein brothers getting in trouble for it too.
Yeah, I mean, if I was the Secret Service, I would wonder if I could do a referral to Child Protective Services because I feel like that might be more of a situation with them.
Don't know. Not going to speculate.
I have no idea if it is or isn't. But would I be surprised if that came out that that was possibly a situation occurring? No, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it'd be like if you found out that they were really interested in a Podesta's art collection, thinking how wonderful some of that art that Podesta had hanging up was. Wouldn't be surprised, not one bit. Getting into some deep internet conspiracy theory over here.
Yeah, Chad trying to get us taken off the internet.
I am not asking questions with a capital Q.
I'm just asking
anonymously.
questions.
I'm just asking questions. I'm going to sue a Navy SEAL's widow because that's going to make me popular within the community. Even Jesse Ventura is he had a legit opportunity to try to be something. He had gotten elected as an independent in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
He actually did a couple things that were pretty popular. He was doing some good stuff in Minnesota, and he just couldn't tamp down the crazy.
No, dude, it's completely nuts.
Because he had one of the best answers I'd ever seen in a debate. Because apparently, I guess Minnesota, they were spending tons of money doing winter rescues on people who were falling through the ice after they were snowmobiling on top of these lakes. And he was like, it's not my job. It shouldn't be our job to try to pay for keeping stupid people alive.
To save idiots.
Yeah, like everybody knows you shouldn't snowmobile on frozen lakes. We're all from Minnesota. We all know that. It's just like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. Why are we spending all this money to save these people? And as Jambalama says, he went full tard after that.
You never go full retard.
Yep, he went simple Jack.
Yep.
One simple Jack. But yeah. He was part of the Reform Party because that was when Ventura was trying to suck Trump into that party at that time too. He was trying to get Trump to be a Reform Party candidate. And Trump was like, nah, I think I'm okay at the moment. Worked out well in the long run.
I'd rather not be associated with you, Mr. Ventura. I mean, being in the WWE Hall of Fame is one thing, but political party, no thanks. I think I'll side with Kane.
Donald Trump has made sure to include not just one, but another WWE Hall of Famer in every administration he's run. Because he's had Lyndon McMahon in both.
Yep.
Now, if he could just get Kane in there too, I mean, we got to find a spot for him. That's
Kane's been doing a pretty good job as mayor.
Kane needs to run for governor of, I think he's in Kentucky, so he could take on Bashir.
Is it Kentucky? I thought it was Tennessee that he's in.
Is he in Tennessee?
I think so.
All right, well then he needs to move to Kentucky because we need to get Bashir out of Kentucky.
Yeah, that'd be nice. So shall we talk about the plane?
The plane, the Qatari plane.
The plane, the plane. Yeah,
Yeah.
Eric said it is Tennessee. So
That's. I mean, Tennessee's pretty solid. Outside of
yeah,
Memphis and Nashville.
Nashville. Yeah.
So,
So
yeah, the
the
Qatari
Qatari
plane.
plane.
It's a nice, big, beautiful $400 billion plane. It's
A
also a
palace in the
gift.
sky.
It's a gift. I'm gonna take it as a gift. When they're trying to give him shit. Who was it? Somebody. It was Scott Bessent this morning when they were asking about it, and he was like, France gave us the Statue of Liberty. We didn't say no. England gave us the Resolute desk. We didn't say no. This is going to be a gift to the American people. We're not going to say no. So
And it
the
wouldn't
original.
surprise me if Trump never actually flies on this plane.
Yeah, they were initially attacking it, trying to say that Trump was going to be,
That it
um,
was a bribe.
yeah, that it was a bribe,
It's like,
and
so
because
he
they,
took the bribe and he got a couple $100 billion of investment for the country. That it's weird. It seems like it's all going one direction if it's a bribe.
yeah, I mean, it's like the baby Trump said. I'll if they wanted to give me if they wanted 400 billion for America, I'd say make it five. And so Trump went to Qatar and he got him to increase the deal. It's more than just the plane. Now they're actually doing some investing in the United States as well.
Yeah. Well, so Trump's foreign policy right now seems to be, we don't really care about how good or bad a country is. It's really what kind of deals can I make with them that benefit the U.S.
Which
And
is how it always should
the
be.
left is absolutely outraged over we're making deals with anybody who will actually do things that are making it better for American business. The left really does hate the working man.
Correct. I mean, no one should be upset. In the end, if we avoid war with Iran and we make a deal with Iran that's reasonable and we end up opening up the entire international market to Iranian oil, which adds another major competitor to Saudi Arabia and Russia in terms of international oil production, and drops the cost of oil, which then drops the cost of refined gasoline, which drops the cost of plastics, which drops the cost of energy generation across the board, transportation, distribution, et cetera, and you start lowering everybody's costs. How are you not in favor of that? If you can reduce the risk of war globally,
Mm-hmm.
specifically in the Middle East, and push towards normalization and peace within the Middle East, and then reduce the cost to the consumers in the United States, you're somehow saying he's a dick? Like, look at you, terrible person. You know what they're really upset about is every step he takes to help make oil, as it is, the most widely available, commercially viable energy generating for vehicles source. They're so unhappy that we're not getting on this like renewable energy boondoggle, because they can control all that too, by the way. The one
Sorry,
thing that,
switching scenes to get rid of your screen share.
yeah, it's still there. But
It's off on mine.
is it? I still see it, and I'm on the YouTube feed, and it's still there. So
Well,
whatever, it's all right. But point
now it's
is,
back.
like, when there's renewable energy as the main thing, it gives them the ability to shut down energy to people immediately anytime they feel like it. When it's gasoline, right? If you have gas powered stuff or diesel, guess what you can keep in your garage? Some cans where you put some in there for yourself. So if you've got
Emergency
an
use.
emergency situation, you can take care of things. They hate that. That's why they want everything on electricity. It isn't because electrical power is better or that EVs are better. EVs are terrible. Like, drive an EV in the cold, like Colorado. I don't know why anyone would drive an EV out there, because once you get to the cold season, if once it gets below freezing, EV's range drops by like 45% or more.
You'd be amazed at how many are out here. Specifically Teslas.
Yeah.
Teslas
Maybe-
and what is the other one? Rivians?
Yeah,
that the
I
other
think they make
truck
the trucks. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a completely irrational system, like, because
But
if
it's
you're in a
their
place
holy
that gets
grail.
snowed in, yeah.
I mean, their holy grail has been climate change for 30 years now to try and get control over energy production, which leads them to their power base. And if they get enough people, sucked into the belief into climate change as a major thing, that's where they're getting their power. So, yeah, the left is going to be ridiculous about this for the foreseeable future, because if you're making deals that bring oil and coal specifically, and natural gas back into mass production and getting most of your energy from it, that's pissing them off, because that is completely shutting down, the Green New Deal, everything that they've been working on. I mean, Trump's dismantling everything that they've done in the past 4 years. And it's great. This is what we voted for. I mean, every time I see something on Twitter that it's like, is this what you voted for? It's like, yes. Everything except for Kash Patel and Dan Bongino not doing anything.
Yep. And I guess in theory they could turn it around. Pam Bondi's also, she's doing enough good stuff with like the 2A and making settlements on there that I'm okay with it. But I want to see a little more out of her. I'm hoping that Ed Martin and Hermit Dillon start doing some pretty solid work that we can give the DOJ credit for.
I saw a few things that Harmeet is working on. Can't remember specifically, but I should have bookmarked it. But Harmeet seems to be going in and getting some work done. Dismantling some DEI. But the other branch of government that is hampering a little bit, again, is the Supreme Court. So since you love to stay up on the Supreme Court stuff,
Yep.
you want to give us a breakdown of the latest decision from the Supreme Court, the
So-
7-2 decision.
We've had there were two major things in the Supreme Court this week. One was they did actual oral arguments on the birthright citizenship case on Wednesday, on the 15th. The thing is, though, they weren't actually doing arguments on the merits of the case. I guess Thursday the 15th. They were looking at the merits of nationwide injunctions, which is the major thing hampering the Trump administration, because left and right district courts have been basically locking down the Trump administration every time they do anything.
Right.
So that was interesting. I do believe that there's going to end up being a compromise decision on that, where that there is going to be an allowance for nationwide injunctions, but there's going to be, the Supreme Court is going to issue specific formulas on how it has to be done, so that they don't, because John Roberts is an institutionalist, and he knows that these things are causing a lot of issues within the integrity of the court, quote unquote, for the conservative side. So he's going to do something to try to lock that down, but at the same time still preserving the right to do nationwide injunctions.
Yeah, Roberts, in his only thing that he seems to have cared about in his full time at the Supreme Court is his legacy, or the court's legacy. So he doesn't seem to make decisions based on the Constitution all the time. It's about how the court will appear and what preserves the court's power, in my
Correct.
opinion.
Yeah, so that's what I feel like. That decision is actually going to be fairly quick forthcoming for the Supreme Court, probably a matter of like a week or two. When they do a case like this, they're not going to sit on it a long time. The swing issue is going to be Amy Coney Barrett, who is the problem child to a lot of people in the conservative circles.
Mm-hmm.
So the
And
issue
for good
for
reason.
her,
She just keeps seeming to side with everything that is antithetical to why we wanted her on the court. So,
yeah. So Amy Coney, the problem, she's an academic, and this is where I watched a lot of people who followed like her legal career. She
mhm.
never actually worked in a professional like litigating position. She went from being a law student to being a law graduate to being a law clerk to being a law professor
Right.
to
So
being
she
a
never actually lawyered, she judged.
to being a judge. Like she never actually was a litigator. She's basically she took the academic route into judgeship. So she approaches it, if you understand someone's like way they approach things, you can see it. So she's approaching things from a like an academic standpoint, which I think impacts, unfortunately, gives us some of the wishy-washy stuff, because academics are trained to be a little more wishy-washy. They're like judge's advocate, this, that, the other. Whereas somebody like Thomas, who was actually in this DOJ civil rights division under Reagan, like he was out there doing work. And so when he gets in there, he understands the need to be aggressive and clear in his decision making when he writes an opinion. That's the reason why when you get a Thomas written opinion, there's usually not a lot of like nuance to like tests that he's
No
giving.
wiggle room.
Yeah,
This is what we're telling you.
yeah. Now, whether people try, like he did this with the Second Amendment, where he said any gun in common use cannot, that is not, like a novel and harmful thing, it cannot be banned. Which should clearly mean that AR-15s, as an example, the most popular firearm in the United States, should not be able to be banned in any state. So, but what the Democrat side is, but he also said that if they're particularly dangerous, you can ban them. Like AR-15s are not more dangerous than an average semi-automatic firearm. They're just Democrats think they look scary.
They just look scarier.
Yeah, so they took Thomas's like one little caveat where he was trying to add to future proof his decision. Like if you make a laser gun that could melt people instantly or something, like that's novel and dangerous. We can ban that for the time being, right? That he was future thinking when he added that line. Thinking like, when Simon Phoenix gets unthawed and he finds the laser gun in Demolition Man.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's exactly what Thomas was thinking when he put it in there. But the Democratic legislatures or lawyers or attorneys generals turn around and then use the other part to try to ban AR-15s, like in Illinois, Maryland, Colorado just recently did their gun control stuff.
Yeah.
So, but hopefully they're going to have to do a case to clarify that one again soon. So I don't know that. I think what we're going to get is the compromise out of this one, where nationwide injunctions are going to be allowed under specific, very limited purposes, possibly only after a class certification has been made, and only which is to get into the legal parlance. When people sue for something, you sue as an independent, like as a person on the lawsuit. Like Brahma is filing a lawsuit, it's going to say Brahma Bull, because that's his name and that's what we call him, is
True.
suing the state of Colorado for violating his rights when it comes to firearms purchases. He would then turn around and say, this lawsuit isn't just about me, it's about every adult male and female over the age of 18 who could purchase a firearm. So this shouldn't just be considered an individual lawsuit. This should be a class lawsuit. You should certify that every person impacted by this law is now part of this lawsuit. To do that,
as
you
part
have
of the standing.
Yeah. So to do that, there's a whole series of steps that a court has to take to certify class standing. And we all know this because at some point in our adult life, we've gotten our little flyers in the mail that says there was a class action lawsuit against this bank or this credit card or this thing, and you're
Or this
entitled
weed weed killer company.
So you're now entitled to like $25 as a result. But that's
Sure.
because the court has went through and said that we've done all this vigorous testing. Everyone who part of this or impacted by this is a class, so these lawyers now represent everybody who's impacted. For in the case of immigration, that's important because they keep trying to do these things where instead of suing as XY individual who's impacted by birthright citizenship, they're saying it's being applied to everybody who would be impacted by this, making it a class case when they never went through the class certification. So
Yeah.
that's where the compromise on that's going to end up going. The other thing they did was on a 7-2 case with only Thomas and
Alito.
Alito dissenting, is the Supreme Court said that the deportation of the Tren de Agua people being held in Texas is now on hold on an is stayed, is enjoined because they weren't given enough due process. The Supreme Court didn't rule on how much that should be. What they said is the information that they were given in this case is that the people were arrested and given 24 hours notice that they were going to be deported, and that amount of time to try to get a legal challenge filed was not sufficient due process for them. And
Which
so
who cares? The due process should be, were you caught here? Did we double check to make sure that, yes, you are undocumented? Okay, you're gone.
So what's interesting in the Supreme Court decision, Roberts wrote the decision like he does on these ones. He said that if any of these people are subject to deportation under any other circumstances, they can still be deported based on those things. So
So if they've already got a standing ICE detainer, or
for instance, if you were Kilmar, whatever Maryland man, and you already had your deportation order, what this decision would say is that Trump couldn't deport him under the Aliens Enemies Act with that kind of due process, but Trump could
on
use
a standing deportation order.
Yes, but Trump could use Homeland Security just under the standard deportation order to send them out. So if any of these guys have warrants against them, have committed crimes, violent crimes in the U.S., they can use standard deportation process to just kick them out too. So he's saying that those guys can be removed under those processes without even though this is stayed right now. So this decision doesn't even actually block any of these guys from being deported if they're being deported under the other processes that are available. What the Supreme Court did is it sent back down to the district court and the appeals court level and said, you just need to figure out what the proper due process is in this circumstance. And then if the federal government disagrees, they can then appeal that back up to the Supreme Court and we can make a decision. So they're not fact-finding on due process yet. They're going to get to that. They just said it doesn't pass the smell test for due process, so it needs to go down. The federal government needs to detail and give a more specific process that they're following, and then if that's all good, we're fine. If the detainees challenge that process, it can go back up. If the federal government isn't happy with what the court's order to be processed, it can go back up. So it's not a final decision in any way. So what it means is they're going to have to get more than 24 hours notice, it looks like.
See, my thing is a lot like TZ said. The thing that I think is ridiculous is we're not giving them enough notice before we're just deporting them out of the country. It's like, how much notice did they give us when they crossed the border illegally?
That's true.
Mean, who cares?
Well, to be fair, under the Biden administration, they clicked into the app.
Depending on how they came in,
yeah, they might have given very good amount of notice because they might have got a flight in.
Yeah.
No, I think there's going to come. So this is the part where the Trump people are still playing it close to the vest because they haven't told the Supreme Court to fuck off yet. Because they could. The most famous case of that was Andrew Jackson with the Indians.
Trail of Tears.
Where he told them to F off and he just kicked them off their land anyway. Because here's the dirty little secret. If the Supreme Court makes a decision, you know who's responsible for enforcing the Supreme Court's decision? The
The
president.
executive.
Yeah. So if the executive decides not to enforce it, there is literally nothing the Supreme Court can do to a co equal branch. What the Supreme Court would do is send a note over to the Congress and say, the president's ignoring us. We feel that, Roberts could write a notice saying he's being blatantly in disregard of the Supreme Court, law, legal reasoning. You can
You
please,
have the power to remove him.
you have the power to impeach him if you deem this sufficient.
Yep.
If
We
the,
did get another super chat a little while back from Deeple over on the Rumble side. I'd love to know how Chad's extra screen share is related to the Ottoman Empire. Also glad to see everyone again. Remember, people, now is the time to press the gas to the floor. Local elections matter. Yeah, Evie Mux is being weird. It won't let us remove his screen share unless he does another screen share. That's the only time it allows me to remove it. So we get double the Chad.
Evie Mux has been having a little bit of issues, but it's all right.
Well, I think it's because I'm using the dynamic setup instead of the one where I can manually do everything. But I can't really fix it on the fly. So
Yeah. So on the Supreme Court, I'm not as worried about the Tren de Agua as some people. I mean, I know that they're like, oh, it's 7-2. I think because it's so novel, this him using the Aliens Act, that I don't think the Supreme Court is saying that he can't. The federal government just needs to provide some kind of specific process that they're following, and and right now the Trump administration has not done a good job of saying, look, for this is the situation. Person gets identified by so and so, they get collected, arrested, detained. They get brought to this location. You might have to identify like 3 or 4 holding zones within the United States that they go to prior to deportation. And then this is the process where they get advised that they're being deported. I would say what's going to end up happening is they probably will get about 5 days. They're going to get from when they get collected and given their notice, they'll get 5 days, and they'll be given a list of, people who can file habeas petitions on their behalf. And then failure to file it, if that habeas doesn't go through, they get deported. Something like that. The thing is, they need to have a set process down that they can now point to for the Supreme Court to sign off on it. Right now, the federal government, when they reply to this, they've been replying with a lot of, that's national security. We can't talk about what we do. Trust us. We're giving them due process.
right.
Even a conservative Supreme Court isn't going to like a trust us. We're giving them due process answer from the trust.
We're
Trump
from the
administration.
government. Trust
Yeah.
us.
So
Lindsay asked a question. Didn't Biden ignore the SCOTUS ruling in regards to student loan cancellations? Just saying. He did and he didn't. They said he couldn't do it the way that the case was brought before them, so he just went about doing it different ways, and there was not enough challenge given to the second and third time he decided to do it.
No, they challenged it and it got shut down. He never gave student loan. So Biden was trying to forgive the debt, and every time he was trying to find a new way to do that, it got challenged and stopped. What Biden did that Trump has turned back on, that people are thinking he did, Biden just stopped enforcing any kind of collection interest or actions against people who weren't making payments, which effectively, even if you don't forgive the debt, makes the debt not present. Trump has turned back on collection activity, meaning that people are getting notices to their credit report for failure to pay. They're getting notices to make payments. They're getting garnishments against Social Security or their tax refunds when they haven't made any payments for student loans. But Biden, you are right that Biden did try to find new ways to forgive the
Tried
debt.
to sidestep it. Yeah.
Well, each time they came up with a new way they thought they had the power to actually forgive the debt, but it always got challenged in court every new way they came up with it, and it lost every single time because Biden didn't have the power to forgive what the Congress had effectively allocated.
Which, yeah, I mean, you took a loan. You're the one who signed for it. I don't care if you were 17 or 18 at the time. Well, probably 18 if you were taking the loan. Uh, you're responsible for paying it back, not the rest of us. And really, that's a forgiveness for probably the the same people that everybody says, well, they're not paying their fair share. Because most of the people who would be affected by the student loan forgiveness are the people that do have their degrees or their masters and should be able to pay it back. I mean, yes, I've got a degree. It took me almost 20 years to pay it back, but we did it. Because that's what you do when you take a loan. You have everything spelled out for you, and it doesn't really matter what happens in the future on it. You're still responsible for taking that money and paying it back. So,
Yeah, and student loan forgiveness is the ultimate working class paying for the upper class
exactly.
situation.
That's what I'm getting at. I mean, the upper class is who's going to benefit from that. The lower class and the middle class is the ones that are going to pay for it through taxes.
Yeah, and I went to a state college. My wife went to one as well. Because, I mean, that's another thing. Going to like out of state or private colleges where you're now jumping from 10 grand a year in tuition, not counting forget room and board, but just tuition, to like 30 to 40 grand a year in tuition. Yeah. Look at Bad Take Bojan paid 200,000 in son's college tuition over the last 7 years. Kids need to pay back what they owe. That is a ridiculous amount of
Yeah.
It's 28,000 a year. You're getting a job just to pay your kids' college tuition. And yeah, and then you choose your degree, right? I did comparative studies of gender non-conforming people in medieval Europe.
Yeah.
I expect to be paid.
Lesbian dance theory.
How is it I didn't get my $90,000 a year job out of college? Maybe because that's not a thing that people want or will pay for, especially now that government is getting downsized.
Davina is asking, is there a possibility of lower taxes in the next 10 years?
There's a possibility of lower taxes in the next couple of weeks if the Chip Roys of the world get their heads out of their asses.
Yeah, if they would stop screwing around with the reconciliation package in Congress. I mean, Trump's been pushing. We all know about the no tax on tips and all that kind of stuff that he's pushing, but also, trying to eliminate taxes for everybody making 150,000 or less, or 200,000 in joint situations. So that would be a lot of reduction in taxes for a lot of the country. But the reconciliation package has to go through, and there are some people holding it up, including my doppelganger, Chip Roy.
Yeah. Thomas Massey, Chip Roy, all those guys.
So we've talked about the Democrats not learning the lesson of the election. A lot of the Republicans didn't learn the lesson either. The lesson is MAGA wants what Trump is selling, and the Republican Party has to get on board with it as well. I mean, you can't have these holdouts that are not going to allow what we all voted for to happen.
I mean,
It's not going to work out for them well in the future.
I mean, there are the only thing that Trump wasn't getting fully in the reconciliation bill was that they were going to not completely eliminate the taxes on Social Security, but instead they were going to give a tax credit of up to $4,000 for earners below $100,000. I don't know that that's quite what he was campaigning on, but it was still close. But everything else with no tax on tips was in there, no tax on overtime was in there. The main thing was eliminating taxes on Social Security income was going to be like a $500 billion adjustment that they didn't want to have to do. I could see means testing it. I would say that if someone has income above 150 grand, they should maybe they could start eliminating it. But anyway, there was a lot of other good stuff. I mean, there was good stuff too. They were going to remove the NFA fees for suppressors and short barrel rifles and such. If you're a 2A person, it'd be great if they just actually removed them from being, you know, actually a licensed item that you have to get from an ATF tax stamp anyway. But
Hmm.
they were going, but the main thing was they were going to keep the tax brackets as they were. They were going to offer some incentives for reshoring employment and factories. This he needs this second pillar to be able to make the moves against China in trade. And I wish that these guys understood that. Like you need, Besant, Lutnick, all these guys are pretty clear that we've put the chip down on the table about tariffs probably being around 10% as the baseline, but adjusted up if needed to kind of fix for anything that's bad.
Yeah, the
And we
China
need,
deal was 10% and 30%, right? The one that they were
yep,
working on.
yep. And they need that second leg of the stool here, and that's the tax policy to be able to really move into overdrive on things because they need to be able to have now they've got the stick with the tariffs. They need the carrot to really reshore stuff,
Hmm.
and that's the next thing. So, and the last thing is gonna, we've talked about enough on that. I do think that these Republicans get a little too full, like my principles. I get it. In theory, it's awesome to have my principles, but sometimes you've got to just pro-
Compromise to
well, you've
get
got to
things done.
you've got to get W's. If you never,
Yeah.
my principles is why John McCain was able to torpedo repealing Obamacare.
Yep.
So because there
And look
wasn't
how
enough.
much that's cost the middle class over the last, what has it been, 14 years?
Exactly. So
Most of us can't even use our health insurance because we can't afford the deductibles on top of the cost of the plans. So, I know we had one more thing to get to, the her interview.
yep. I've got it, but I don't. I'm worried about screen sharing now because it's just going to start the whole thing.
I figured out how to fix it. So
All right, then.
we just go to the Harambe and Peanut, and then I can remove it and then come back.
All right, so this case, we finally got the leaked audio of it went to Axios of the interview that Biden gave to special counsel Robert Hur about him storing classified documents in his house next to his Corvette in the garage.
And talking to his ghostwriter about things that were
Yep.
classified.
And his
And
ghostwriter deleting all of those conversations before the special counsel could listen to him.
and all the people on the Democrat side, especially Adam Schiff and Raskin, going out and saying that everything that Hur said about Biden's cognitive issues was just cheap shots.
To give people a frame of reference if they forgot, special counsel Hur came out and did his report, and his conclusion was Biden 100% did it, but because he's such a demented, frail old man, there's no
A
way
jury would
a
never
jury
find him guilty.
would convict him because everyone would think, would be like, oh, poor old man. They're never going to convict him. And people said, and in his report, he said that Biden was not lucid, was mixing up dates, didn't remember when his son died. And Biden came out, did an angry press conference saying, how dare he bring up my son? When we were doing the interview, he was bringing up my son to try to badger me because he knows it's a sore point. We'll listen to the audio in a second and see how that was a lying statement. Then there's also the shifts of the world who went out and said Hur was a liar who was just doing work for the Republicans because Biden is sharp as a tack. Everybody who's been around Biden knows he's still the smartest man in the room. So let's
Yeah.
go ahead and play this.
People coming out and going, well, Robert Hur isn't a neurologist, so he can't make these statements. It was pretty obvious to anybody who listens to it. So
Yeah,
let's
this
listen.
was their smartest man in the room.
A little bit of a longer clip, but gives us a good idea of what was going on.
Living in Chambers Road, and there were documents related to the Penn Biden Center or the Biden or the cancer moonshot or your book. Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively looking?
So just to clarify, the specific question was just, I'm naming 3 or 4 things you were doing as vice president or in your capacity as a senator over this time. Cancer moonshot, Biden Institute, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just asking, where did you keep your papers when you were living in Chain Bridge, which is in Virginia, Chain Bridge Road? This is just asking him to go back because at the time before he moved to Delaware, he was living there. He had his permanent house in Delaware, but they had another place there. So just tell me. The question is only, I just want to know where you kept
Where
your
do you
papers.
keep the papers? Yeah.
And this is where he decided. And this is how Biden answers that.
Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying.
Incorrect.
So he just clarified that it was 2017 or 2018 in that time frame. Her says correct. Yes, that's what I'm asking about. And Biden goes, well, remember, my son was deployed or dying at that point. For people who don't remember, his son died in 2015 before Trump was elected, because that is allegedly why Biden decided not to run for president. And he wrote a goddamn book about it, about why he didn't run in 2016 because of Bo dying. And he doesn't, so he's completely wrong by years. And it continues.
And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period, except the president.
That one cracks me up.
He just thought that she had a better shot of winning the presidency than I did. And so I hadn't.
So he's been told
Obama was backing Hillary.
So he knows that Her was specifically asking about 2017, 2018. He says this is, now there's 2 ways to look at it. Either he's getting completely confused and thinking this is going back to 2015, 2016, because that's what he starts answering about, everybody but President Obama wanting him to run for president.
Mm-hmm.
How she, meaning Hillary, had a better chance at winning. So he's completely just missed 2-3 years. And it's not like this is something he should be pretty clear on. It's hilarious that sharp as a tack.
Smartest he's ever been.
I hadn't at this point, even though I'm at Penn, walked away from the idea that I might run for office again. If I ran again, I'd be running for president. And so what was happening though, what month did Bo die? May 30th, 2018. Was it 2015 he died? 2015.
So now that everybody in the room had to just clarify to him what year his son died, which according to Biden was one of the most galvanizing events of his life.
In his life, yeah.
And he can't even remember what year it was. I know exactly, like my mother passed away. I know what year that happened without any trouble. So
But do you know
that-
which war it was in?
yeah, that was 14 years ago. Now, granted, I'm in my 40s, so that doesn't seem like it's a problem. I would think that if I'm not having memory issues or dementia problems, by the time I'm in my 60s and 70s, I'm probably going to still remember what year my mother passed away. Because I might not remember the exact details of this or that, but general what year something happened is not like the biggest thing to worry. He has written books about it. He's campaigned on his son dying every day for when he was on the trail, actually running in 2020 and in 2024 until he backed out. This
But
is
he's
not
also given 20 to 50 different ways that his son died and wars that his son died in.
That's true. He
He can't keep the lies straight.
As commander in chief, when the people came back from Afghanistan to collect the bodies of the soldiers who passed away, Biden did tell them that he understood their pain since Bo died in combat.
Yeah.
By died in combat, he means having cancer, coming
Died of
back to the
cancer
United
years later.
States, getting treatment, and dying years later in the United States. So
2015.
I'm not sure the months are, but I think that was.
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. President.
And what's happened in the meantime is that and Trump gets elected in November of 2017? 2016. All right. So,
Yeah. Got elected in an off year.
Joe Biden is a self-proclaimed constitutional law scholar who just didn't remember that our presidential elections happen every 4 years.
Or
even
that they
numbers.
never happen in an odd year.
Yeah. So there you go.
why do I have 2017 here?
That's when you left office, January of 2017.
Okay.
Thanks for your help, Robert.
Yeah.
But that's when Trump gets sworn in.
Right.
January.
Right. Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's how
And
the presidency works.
in 2017, Bo had passed, and
That's 2 years wrong again.
He just had been corrected. They just remember, not even 40 seconds earlier in this clip, the entire room confirmed to him that Bo had passed in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, yeah, you're right. And now he jumped right back to Bo dying in 2017.
this is personal.
I love the clock ticking in the
The
background.
genesis
Yeah, you can hear the
of the book,
grandfather clock.
the title "Promise Me, Dad," was I know you're all close with your sons and daughters.
Remember, the original question is,
Oh,
where did
yes.
you keep your papers?
Like my right arm, and that was my left.
Correct. Yep.
These guys were a year and a day apart, and they could finish each other's sentences. And Bo, I used to go home on the train in the period that I was still in the Senate.
Well, if you're Robert Herr, part of you wants to jump in and be like, Mr. President, I just want to know where you kept your papers. Like, I don't give a damn about when you took your train home to Delaware when you were still in the Senate. Can you just tell me where
remember when
your
he was-
papers were?
Remember when he left the Senate?
He was
What,
vice president as
2008?
of 2008. So yeah, so we're looking at a good 14 years by the time this interview was happening from when he left the Senate.
Yeah. And this guy's in charge of the country at this time.
I think at this point we all know he wasn't.
Right.
There was not pressure. Bo knew how much I adored him.
And which one sounds like they're using Bo as a shield or a
It
tactic
sounds-
in this
it
interview?
sounds so.
Yeah. Hur did not bring up Bo at all.
Everybody knew how close we were. There was not anybody in the world who wondered whether or not. Anyway. And so.
Sir, I'm wondering if it's a good time to take a break briefly. Would that
No,
be-
let me just keep
Let's take a
going.
break because you obviously can't answer a question.
Yeah, you're not up to this. I asked Robert's like I just want to know where you kept your papers in 2017.
Were the papers next to the Corvette or not?
Yeah. And we get the, so Bo, yeah, TZ Bird. Bo died in 5 or 6 wars. Bo died in Vietnam. Then Bo died in the Gulf War, the first one. Then Bo died in the global war on terror, both in Iraq and Afghanistan. Then Bo died of cancer when he's talking about doing the cancer moonshots. Then Bo died at a burn pit when he was talking about soldiers getting medical issues from burn pits. From the
And yet
first Gulf
Hunter
War.
survived the war on drugs.
Oh, Hunter thrived, man. I mean, apparently crack is the ivermectin of drugs over here.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, Bo was the South Park. Bo was like the South Park Kenny for Joe Biden.
Exactly.
This
But that was the
is
reason he
crazy.
ran.
But this is crazy. This audio, we spent, I think, a good couple months after the like her stuff came out with Democrats constantly like ripping anyone who brought up Her's assessment of Biden, that he was completely wrong, that it was clearly, Biden is the sharpest tool in the shit. He's never been smarter. He's never been more on it. Her is just doing a Republican trying to tank Joe Biden's reelection chances. Well, now we find, and like a lot of things, we finally get to the tape, and it's okay. Um, everybody, her should do a victory lap of vindication.
Some people owe him an apology at very least, which also makes it ridiculous that the whole thing with Jake Tapper bringing out the book now, saying, well, turns out Biden did have cognitive decline, but we were lied to. It's like, journalists, you should have been asking the questions. You don't just accept what the White House says. The White House says, no, he's fine. And Jake Tapper's like, yep, we're good with that. We're going with that. Your job's to question. And now he's bringing out a book to say, yeah, turns out there were some major issues that we've now discovered, and the White House was lying to us about this the whole time. It's like, we all saw it. It's no different than everybody saying, well, during COVID and the whole vaccine thing, the people who refused to take the vaccine, they knew something and they just wouldn't tell us about it. It's like, no, you guys shut down every time anybody tried to say anything about any of it because you wanted to go with the narrative that the government was putting out there. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And so what they're trying to do now with the Jake Tapper book is media, I guess, what would be the right way to say it? Media credibility damage control.
Trying to rehabilitate the media.
Yeah, all they want to do is get you to be able to, buy media lies again. Because they're like, oh, clearly, we're going to now litigate that Biden and his White House orchestrated this giant cover up that we had. How could we have known? There's no way. It was just beyond poor us.
I mean, Karine Jean-Pierre kept telling us, no, he's fine. So, I mean, how do you push back on that?
Yeah, here's I got Mark Halprin shared this clip, to specifically aimed at Jake Tapper, right? So Jake Tapper had Laura Trump on during the when Biden was still in office. Here you go.
Feel bad for him.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
So Tapper, being the dick he is, just said, oh, it's not that Biden's, because Laura Trump was doing the standard. I feel bad for this old man that's got dementia that's being, put
He's
out there.
being used by Jill and by whoever else is pulling the strings in the White House.
Yep. And then he immediately comes out with this. By the way, I followed politics my entire adult life. Joe Biden was never someone that they said had a stuttering issue
Until he had dementia.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I had no idea that Joe Biden ever suffered from a stutter. I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden
This is why Laura's good.
is
She knows
very
this.
clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
You have
to
no
watch somebody on stage
I can't.
search for
This is so amazing.
questions
It's so amazing to me
and,
that
and try and figure out an answer.
You can see how he immediately was like, "Oh, that's bullshit."
Okay,
Oh, that's
we're
bullshit.
not going to take a diagnosis from you, Laura Trump. I mean, nobody believe your eyes when you or your ears when you listen to this guy just go on crazy rants, when he just starts whispering in the middle of a speech, when he can't finish a sentence, when he can't find the right word ever. But no, you can't point out that he's got obvious cognitive issues. That's crossing a line.
a cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were
stuttering,
mocking his stutter.
Joe
Yeah,
Biden.
I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have
Let's talk about
absolutely
this,
no
Jake.
standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think
I'm not
that somebody
diagnosing,
in
I'm
the Trump
saying that
family would
we
be more
see that Joe
sensitive
Biden of
to people who
today
do not have medical
not the Joe
licenses.
Biden of
Diagnose.
Now it's trying to turn it around. Like a lot of people have said shit about your father-in-law. So how dare you try to you didn't need a medical license to know everybody. I shouldn't say everybody. Anybody who's ever dealt with a family member who's gone into dementia or memory issue care in old age knows what that looks like and could see it in Joe Biden. Like this is not an uncommon problem. People have family members who've gone that route, and how it's so disingenuous and now he has the balls to write a book about how it was a Biden White House cover up that the press had no idea about, because they kept telling us he was fine. And how could we have ever seen any evidence? There was never any evidence except everything he was doing in front of the cameras.
We as journalists are not called to question anything. Our job is just to report it. This is what we were told, so we report it. No, the job of a journalist is to dig and find actual answers, not accept the first thing that's told to you by especially the government.
Yep.
Politicians from afar. Plenty of people have diagnosed your father from afar, and I'm sure it offends you. Your father-in-law from afar. I'm sure it offends you. You don't have any standing to say.
I'm not diagnosing him. What I'm saying, Jake,
You just talked
is
about
that
a cognitive
we can
decline.
clearly see
Because there's obviously
It's
not
freaking
one.
obvious.
Don't worry, Jake. In 2 years, you'll write a book about his well-known cognitive decline that was covered up and pretend. Oh my gosh, who could have known? Who knew? If only had any, who could tell the emperor had no clothes? It's a shock. We're reporting it first here on CNN. The emperor was naked the entire time. We were amazed. We'd had no idea this was coming. Then some little kid in the crowd finally was like, he's got nothing on. And we were like, you're right. He does have nothing on. Once everybody agreed that he had nothing was on, we totally agreed with you guys. Breaking news.
And Tapper trying to claim that, well, I stayed pretty neutral through all of this. I didn't do anything reporting that he did have cognitive decline, and I didn't push back against people who said he did. No, we've got the receipts. You're looking at it right now.
Yeah, look at it's easy bird. Look how the press room traded Biden and gay Jean-Luc Picard. I'm guessing you mean Karen Jean-Pierre.
Yeah.
Anytime I think of Biden and I hear Jean-Luc Picard now, I feel like it was the press being the Kardashians trying to get us to say there were only 4 lights. There are only 4 lights. No, there's 5. No, there's only 4. Oh, just admit it.
There are only 4 lights.
Just admit it. It's fine. But Jake Tapper, anytime anybody likes to roll Jake Tapper out as some kind of impartial, neutral observer. He is an absolute hack of the highest order. If people forget that Jake Tapper's big break as a journalist was that he went out on a blind date with Monica Lewinsky and wrote an entire article series about going out with Monica Lewinsky during the Clinton scandal. He worked. He is a Democrat person through and through. He worked for Democrats as their press secretaries.
He's a creature of the left.
Yeah, so he won an award for that Monica Lewinsky article, and he parlayed that into working to Salon all the way to ABC News and then CNN. And ABC News was headed by George Stephanopoulos.
Yep.
So
former Clinton. What was he? Chief of staff for Clinton.
Yeah, no, he was. Yeah, he was. I don't think he was chief. Was he chief of staff? He was.
I think he was chief of staff for a while. I think he also was headed the Clinton campaign originally, but I can't remember all the positions he had within the freaking Democrat Party and Clinton's time in office specifically, but then parlayed that directly into the media, which seems to be what happens with all Democrats. They get done with lying to you as a politician, and then they go and lie to you as a media personality.
Yeah, look to Obama's Netflix deal.
Yeah.
They're going to get paid one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's also married to a Planned Parenthood official, so you can I would be wary of anybody who would knowingly marry someone who was in the executive departments of Planned Parenthood. There's so much bad karma and sin and blood on those hands. Like, from a Christian standpoint, if that person hasn't really adopted a position of atonement and for seeking forgiveness, that's just a terrible weight on your soul. So
you would think.
I mean, could you imagine being married to someone who was like in executive leadership of Planned Parenthood, like coming home every night, like we had a great quarter? And
I can't even imagine being married to somebody who is, pro-choice. So I would have just as big a problem with that. But yeah, somebody who's actually involved in the selling of parts, yeah, that would be an issue.
Yeah, because at this point, it's known how they do that. So anyway, but this is her interview. I think is going to pay, I guess, more dividends because what it does help is because Trump's people are smart and know how to do social media. They're going to do these supercuts of all these, intertwined with Biden just collapsing through that interview. With all these people like, no, he's great. Or attacking Robert Hur, like shifted.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and Raskin.
Yep. And Raskin. Oh, so I'm happy that came. I'm glad that it finally came out. I think it was Trump's DOJ stopped fighting the release of it and just like, oh yeah, sure. Here it is. Apparently the Axios reporter was just like, can I get it? And they're like, yeah, here.
Yeah. Oh, you still want that? Sure.
Yeah, so that's how transparency, man. It helps. So I'm hoping that this is just. I don't think that there's gonna. I know that Trump is doing some posts about AutoPen and who was in charge. There's a lot of space to ask questions about who was making decisions. I don't know that we're going to be in a position to vacate anything, though, just because.
I think what you're going to get. Area. Yeah, I think what you're going to get is congressional hearings about it, which never go anywhere.
Yeah, but I mean, the idea of trying to...
The truth might actually come out more and more, but there's not going to be prosecutions. There's not going to be a repeal of any of those pardons. None of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know that some people are floating like, Justice Brown on the Supreme Court, like, oh, he was mentally unfit when he made the appointment. I'm like, that's not going to be something that we can actually probably fight on because arguing mental fitness at time of making an appointment is such a nebulous gray area zone of argument. What does it even matter? Like, if he was cognizant enough
What
to
does it even
sign the
matter
paper,
at this point?
well, how do you even quantify that, right? Look, we know that he was probably dementia riddled. Does that mean that at no point did he have any kind of cognitive function? Then you're going to start getting into nuances of sundowning,
Sundowning, yeah.
like when people might have the cognitive capability of making decisions and not, and there's such
From
there's
11 a.m. to 4 p.m., except for the hour and a half nap in the middle of it after lunch.
We're going to get into the fact that historically we've probably had completely debilitated presidents like Woodrow Wilson, where there was still decision making getting done by his wife signing paperwork, holding his hand and signing things. And those were considered legal.
Well, the other story that came out this week, if you've got a little extra time this week, the wheelchair story.
Oh yeah, that if he won re-election,
if he had won re-election, he probably would have been in a wheelchair for most of this 4 years.
Yep.
Which also, I mean, basically his doctors had said if he takes another fall, he's in serious trouble, which is why they went to the short steps on the plane. It's why they changed a whole bunch of things, and they could not put him in a wheelchair before the election because it would show weakness, where we already had pointed it out. But yes, they were talking about he would have needed to be in a wheelchair for the next 4 years. And you could do it afterwards and say, well, it's been done before. But that was another major piece of news coming out of what would have been the Biden campaign. So,
and then the leaks that come out, we would have put him in a wheelchair. The Kamala side, we never had any polling that actually showed her up in the swing states. Like, how many more lies are you just going to admit to now at this point?
Well, they've got to burn down that whole presidency now. And that includes Kamala and her campaign, because they've got to get away from all of that because it went so poorly for them.
Yep.
But I think that gets us pretty much to the wrap on the show. I think we are going to move. I know some people will not be happy with this, but I think we are going to move the show to 8 p.m. Mountain Time on Sundays, which is 10 p.m. Eastern for little Chad. But yeah, the spouse is not happy with this time slot, which was part of the reason why I was asking chat to comment on what they thought about it moving. But yeah, got to keep the personal life going correctly, and also hard to get to church on Sunday morning. So we'll have a little bit more time likely on Sunday nights as well, and we'll have more time to go over all these Sunday morning news hits that are happening typically during this time period, which, yes, the show was originally designed to kind of be a counterpoint to the Sunday morning shows, but I mean, I think we can be more effective in the evening. And the other thing is, it should be well after Gary finishes his show on Sundays. So that is the plan for starting next week. What do you got coming up, Chad?
We've got Matapap on Tuesday, whatever the story that Mad picks for this week. We got the Ascendant Arc podcast Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern. We picked up another sub. Yay. So if we can get more subs, that would be awesome. Continue the slow march towards monetization. That would be great. And we've got possibly some Ascendant Arcade hits, depending on if and when Slender's popping those in, going live on that kind of stuff on that channel. So it's the normal good stuff. Anybody who is a praying person, I did my second interview on a job that I'm really hopeful for. So if you want to throw in a couple kind words in my favor as you're doing those nightlies or dailies, whatever, I would appreciate it. If you're Catholic, you light a candle, whatever you want to do. that can start putting some positivity towards that, I do think this one would be particularly great for me and my family. So I would appreciate that.
Yep. So prayers for little Chad on the work front. I will also be getting Wednesdays freed up as of June 18th because Shags also did find a new job. So the midweek hump will be going away after June 18th because Shags is going to be moving to Hawaii for his new job. So
Very
sounds
nice.
sounds like everybody who lost their job in my circle in the last few weeks is finding something that's a replacement that's actually good for them. So we'll keep the fingers crossed for you there, bud, and keep praying for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
As for me, Monday and Thursday, I will be on Comics Division as usual. Tuesday, we've got Mad's new channel. Wednesday, got the hump for a few more weeks, and, well, exactly 1 month from today, we'll end it. And then I think we've got a Christian panel this week. Friday, we're over on Us and Art, and Saturday, we were doing bourbon and boarding for the remainder of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So that's what's coming
I
up.
just need Toronto to be out, and then I'll be content with the playoffs.
Yeah, a few more hours. We'll find out who is going to go from the Eastern Conference to the finals, because we've got a Game 7 tonight at, what time is that? 5:30 my time, so 7:30 Eastern. Should be an interesting game. Each one of these games, one team has decided just not to show up. So we'll see who doesn't show up tonight, or if they actually decide to play each other. Should be fun. I've already got my bets in place. But yeah, thank you everybody for being here. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and we will catch y'all next week at the new time, 8 p.m. Mountain, 10 p.m. Eastern. So later,
All right.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.